All right, everyone. Welcome to Between the Chalk Lines, all baseball talk, all the time. The one podcast that you need every week, catch you up on everything. This is a special weekly wrap up with trade talk. MLB trade deadline is July 30th, so we're 1 month away. When you hear this, we're 1 month away from the trade deadline, and things are already spinning. Things are already moving. People are getting signed. People are getting dropped. People are getting moved. Getting people called up. A lot of it's happening real quick right now this week, so don't miss out. Gonna start off just reminding everyone there is this 2023 Shane Bieber Orange Refractor out of 25, number 25. I know he's down with an injury. We're going to talk about some injuries and other things going down. But if you can guess the number out of 25 or get darn close, then I'll send it right to the front door. And it'll be yours to keep. Keep that in mind. But right now, we're going to start off with the standings. And things look a lot different than they did a month ago. I'll tell you that. And the American League East, Baltimore Orioles have overtaken the New York Yankees. They actually have one more win than they do, but they also have, the Yankees have one more win at 52-31, while the Orioles stand at 51-30. Boston Red Sox aren't completely out of it. They're sitting 7.5 games back as of today, Friday, the 28th. And then you have the Tampa Bay Rays, who are 11 games back. And finally, Toronto Blue Jays, who are 13.5 games back. And we're sitting at the halfway point, everyone. Today is mostly, for most teams, halfway point. Like I said, Baltimore is 51-30. That's 81 games. You can do the math, and that's half of 162. So most teams have played at least or about 81 games, if not more, like the New York Yankees, who have played 83 games. But that's just a very, very rare occasion for teams on the East Coast that tend to have rained out games. Rays are at 81 games. Red Sox are at 80 games. The Blue Jays are at 80 games. So most of the teams are about 80 to about 83 games played. A surprising team, the Cleveland Guardians are in the AL Central Division, 51-28. First place, still running hot, still doing very well. With Minnesota right on their tails, kind of, at 7 games behind, with a record of 45-36, followed by Kansas City Royals, who have slowed down just slightly, not too much, at 45-38, 8 games behind Cleveland. And then you have the Detroit Tigers, who started a 4-game series yesterday, play out through Sunday between the Tigers and the Angels, probably two of the more worst teams in the American League. So, depending on how Detroit does, it may decide for office there in Detroit if they'll be sellers or buyers at the trade deadline. They are 37-44 and 15 games behind first place going into today, Friday. And then you have the Chicago White Sox, who are already a confirmed fire sale team. We'll talk about who's available for how long. They are 22-61. Total of 31 games behind the Cleveland Guardians. That is a gap that nobody could overcome. And it is also the largest gap in any division of baseball, as well as the most amount of losses for any team in the game of baseball going into Friday the 28th. Moving on to the West, we have Seattle Mariners, who are 46-37, playing just over 500. Then you have the Houston Astros, who have actually have a slight resurgence. They are back at 500 baseball with a 40-40 record, 4.5 games behind the Mariners. We know the Mariners will be buyers at the trade deadline if it fits their needs and what they want to give up. And then you have the Texas Rangers, who are in third place, 8 games behind first at 37-44. And in fourth place, you have the Angels, who I just talked about, who are playing the Detroit Tigers right now, who are at 34-46, 10.5 games behind first place. Again, they've only played 80 games, so just behind the halfway point. They still have a chance, quote unquote. It's going to be a tough job for the general manager here. We'll talk about some teams and some players that may be available at the trade deadline for National League and American League teams. And the National League East division, starting out there, you have Philadelphia Phillies, who are kind of running away with the East division at 53-28. They have not lost 30 games. They're the only team to have not lost 30 games or more, besides the Cleveland Guardians, who have also 28 losses. Then behind them are the Atlanta Braves, sitting at 44-35. 8 games behind first place. New York Mets have made a resurgence, just like the Astros, sitting at 39-39, 500 flats, but they are 12.5 games behind first place. I don't think it will be likely that you can catch the first place Philadelphia Phillies, but they also might not be huge sellers at the trade deadline. Following them are Washington Nationals, who have some news about them, who are at 38-42, 14.5 games behind first place. And then you have the Miami Marlins, who are, it's very similar to the White Sox, selling off at the trade deadline most likely. Miami Marlins, 29-52 record, 24 games behind first place. And then following the East Division, we go into the Central with the Brewers sitting at 48-33. And then following them, St. Louis Cardinals are 41-39, only 6.5 games behind. Third place, you have the Pittsburgh Pirates, who have always been kind of sitting in the middle. Obviously, third place here, right in between top and bottom. 39-41 record, and 8.5 games behind first place. The Cincinnati Reds, fourth place, kind of starting to fall out of the race entirely. The same thing with the Cubs, who I didn't think they would have such a great fall that they did. But starting with the Reds, 38-43 record for a 10-game behind sit in fourth place. Cubs are merely half a game behind the Reds with a 38-44 record. Then finally, the great NL West, which brings us a lot of interesting stuff. The Dodgers are 51-31. And then you have the Padres sitting behind them, 8.5 games at 44-41, just barely above 500. And they are the only other team above 500 in the West. Go to the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are just in the World Series in 2023, sitting at 39-42, 81 games played. and are sitting 11 and a half games behind first place. So halfway through, 11 and a half games back. Kind of hard to say you should sell or buy or just sit with what you have. San Francisco Giants, who I thought might have a chance at actually doing something this year, have proved me wrong and are sitting at 39-43, 12 games back of the Dodgers total. And then you have the Colorado Rockies sitting rock bottom, no pun intended, 27-53 record, total of 23 games behind first place. And then looking at the AL wild card to start, obviously have the Yankees, Twins, Royals. So two East teams and one Central team represented. And then you have the Red Sox, half a game back of the Royals. The Astros, 3.5 games back of the Royals. And you have the Rays, another East team, only 4 games back of the Royals for the last place spot. And then moving on to the probably not going to the playoffs, but they have a shot team, Toronto Blue Jays and the Detroit Tigers, as well as Rangers, are all within 7 games of the last spot and wild card, but it would be a very, very tough mountain to climb and get back into the thick of things. Moving on to the National League, you have the Phillies, Dodgers, Brewers all looking to clinch their respective divisions. And then behind them, you have the Braves, Padres, surprisingly, and Cardinals sitting in the wild card. The Braves have a somewhat comfortable spot in the wild card. Not as comfortable as the Yankees at 7 game lead over everyone. I should say over the bottom game or team in the Royals. Whereas the Braves only have a 3.5 game lead over the Cardinals at the top, but it's the lead. And then you have, like I said before, the Mets are at 539-39, are only 1 game behind the Cardinals, followed by the Pirates, who are only 2 games behind the Cardinals, and then the Diamondbacks are only 2.5 games. Frisco and Nationals are only 3 games. And finally, the Reds, 3.5 games, Cubs, 4 games, and then it's a large gap between them and the Marlins and the Rockies. Going on to who may or may not be traded right after this news. The Mets, after going on to their great run, unfortunately, right-handed reliever Drew Smith will have to go under the knife. The UCL tear and damage is significant enough to require Tommy John surgery. Speaking of Tommy John surgery, Patrick Sandoval, starting pitcher of the Los Angeles Angels, just underwent Tommy John. I'm not sure if it's brace type and or the hybrid type of Tommy John surgery that has become a little bit more popular lately. And injuries for teams in the National League that I wanted to speak about. Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber just went on the 10-day injured list, and the Phillies made respective moves to bring up an infielder in Cody Clemens and an outfielder in Johan Rojas. And the other teams that are dealing with major injuries have kind of overcome that, it looks like. But you never know. someone could definitely hurt themselves in an instant. There was very, very scary moments the other day where Carlos Correa of the Twins had to leave the game. He was hit by a pitch, and the X-rays cleared him, so he played today, Friday, and he was doing okay. So, getting into the trade deadline talk, early talk. These names could come off the board in a snap. I'm guessing that the names on the White Sox side won't, as well as the Marlins and Rockies, if there are any that I can to list. For the White Sox, I can tell you, first rounder Garrett Crochet. I was excited about him when he got drafted in 2020. Um, he was, you know, this is his first year as a starter. So a lot of teams may point to that and say he doesn't know what he's doing, but he isn't as experienced as a lot of the other guys on this list. He was in the bullpen last year. Lot missed all of 2022 due to Tommy John surgery. Um, but he looks like an ace. Got an ERA of 3.05, leading all of AL with strikeouts of 130, and has 17 starts. And he's also not a free agent until after the 2026 season. That means you get him for this season, 2025, 2026. So you have 2.5 seasons of control over a guy who could possibly be your team's ace, or at least number two if you're the Phillies rotation, or even the Dodgers rotation. Um, so Crochet could possibly bring the most back to Chicago. Luis Robert Jr., outfielder, center fielder for the White Sox, was formerly one of Major League Baseball's top prospects. He even signed an extension with the team before he made his Major League debut, and that will come into play as well as he's under team control through 26 and could possibly make him even a little bit more valuable than Crochet because Crochet only plays once every 5 days. And Robert, even though he is a little bit prone injury, broke out last year with 38 home runs. Although he's, again, the injury prone thing, missed more than 2 months of time with a hip injury this year. He's only 26 years old, but has the potential for to be a superstar and control, team control him through 2026. Um, it looks like or it sounds like, from what I've seen and read and been told, the White Sox are looking for a Juan Soto type of return for Luis Robert Jr., outfielder in the Chicago area. Another cheaper alternative to Luis Robert Jr. is Tommy Pham of the White Sox, also on chopping block. He is 36-year-old veteran who played all three outfield positions, primarily a center fielder by trade. Um, he doesn't bring the bats that Robert does. He's not going to hit 30 plus home runs, 40 home runs. But yeah, I mean, if you need an outfielder in a pinch, Garrett Cooper was just signed by the Orioles. The Yankees were looking at him, but the Orioles snuck him there and grabbed him real quick. Tommy Pham, same thing. If you need an outfielder in a pinch, you can just grab him in a quick pinch. And moving on to the bullpen with the White Sox, again, another name, Michael Kopech, was a once highly touted starter, kind of converted their Had a little bit of a disaster there. Didn't work out. Um, Went back to the bullpen, and his strikeouts are up, walks are down. It's a good thing. ERA is middling, to say the best. But he's also not a free agent until after next year. So you get 1.5 seasons worth of control over Kopak, which, if you need someone in the bullpen to bridge between, eighth inning, ninth inning, or seventh inning, Michael Peck can do that for you. The name for the Mets to watch out and look for, two of them actually are Pete Alonso. It doesn't sound like owners of the Mets, Steve Cohen, wants to pay Alonso the money that he is duly owed. I do believe that this man is owed a triple digit, um, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars deal, probably not more than what Aaron Judge got, and definitely nowhere near where, what, um, DH slash pitcher, um, Shohei Otani made. So I would put his next contract in the 150-ish to $200 million range. And I think Cohen doesn't, he just doesn't want to pay that much money for a first baseman. Peter Alonso sounds like a great guy. He's been a nice guy, uh, averaging over 40 home runs and over 110 RBI, 160 games. Um, his 13 and a half home runs, or sorry, home run per 13 and a half at bats is fifth in history behind McGuire, Judge, Ruth, and Bonds. So he's going to hit a ton of home runs. Keep him healthy. He's not old. He's going to be a free agent after this season and probably make a ton of money. Again, I'm saying 150 to $200 million. Don't know how many years. Probably looking at 6 to 7 years. Um, my math might be a little bit off there in the money side, but, uh, yeah, if someone like the Astros need a first baseman, they may be willing to bite the bullet and, pay up for Pete Alonso, who will hit 15 to 20 home runs for them in the second half of the season, and, uh, themselves back into contention for the West, or even just a wild card spot. And that's again, they also have another name that can hit, some home runs. JD Martinez has come back into his old form, with the Dodgers, and the availability is a question mark with the Mets being in wild card contention. Again, only a few games back of that last spot. Is he available? Not sure. Would he bring back a ton if you traded him? Personally, I don't think so at his age. Although even he's showing that he can hit, like he used to hit with 30 plus power and 100 RBIs plus power. Um, I just don't know with his age. It's a question mark, and even availability, he might not be trade. Might not even be available. And that's my going to say. No, he's off the table. Um, Moving on to another National League team. The last one I have for now is Rockies. Elias Diaz, who was an All Star last year, is a free agent after this season, so it would just be a rental. For any team that needs a frontline catcher, Elias Diaz is a possible answer, as the catching department is not very thick, with talent in this moment. I mean, unless all of a sudden Logan and Hoppy from the Angels came up into the trade deadline talks, um, or someone else like GT Miyamoto. Just not seeing it. Moving on to the American League, Tigers. I don't think Scooball will be on the trade block. I think it's going to be Jack Flaherty, former Cardinals ace, is actually making a real big splash with his 1 year deal with the Tigers, posting an ERA under 3, whip under 1, and in 14 starts, he's averaging about 8 strikeouts per start. They did really well last night, Thursday, against the Angels, but ultimately the Tigers just didn't score enough runs and they lost. So he could possibly go to National League. I would say back home to National League. Cardinals again, maybe. Phillies, maybe. You know, a lot of these teams have been losing arms. Padres, possibly. And speaking of arms, you have a rookie, a technical rookie, who, even though he was called up last year, didn't play enough to get rookie status in 2023. Mason Miller, right hand pitcher for the Athletics, has been a dominant reliever. And then if you trade for him, you have him for 5.5 more years. This is something the Athletics have been known to do. You know, they find a diamond in the rough, they shine it up, put it out for sale ASAP, real quick. They've been doing this for decades, years. It's not something new. So if Mason Miller gets traded to another team, I would not be surprised. He's got an ERA just about 2, literally just 2.02, averaging over 15 strikeouts for 9 innings in his second big league season. So he would not be a free agent until after the A's plan to move to LA. Actually, they would be in their plans. They would be in their second year of being the Las Vegas Athletics. Actually, there's another athletic on this list. The 2018 American League Rookie of the Year runner-up, Miguel Andujar, outfielder, left fielder, technically, of the Yankees that year in 2018, who lost to, really enough, I would say, to Shohei Ohtani, um, has not been able to replicate his success, but is enjoying a good run this year. He's hitting over 300 and just over 100 at bats. Not yet qualifying in that stat for the American League. Um, this could certainly, obviously, tail off tomorrow, but it could be a very easy, low cost bench option for a contender if they need outfielder. Again, like a Tommy Pham, but cheaper. Uh, Moving back to the National League, I forgot there are a couple of other options with the Marlins, who are the uh, National League version of the White Sox, and um, you have Jazz Chisholm Jr., center fielder now. He was infielder before. Reyes came over in that Twins deal, but now he's playing center field and doing well in it. Um, they are just not confident, I think, that they'll do something with him under control through 2026 before he becomes a free agent, because that's 2.5 seasons. Um, they may as well just load up on prospects like they did with the Urias trade to San Diego, but even more. And he's an all-star kind of guy. Definitely someone that you want on your team. The next option on the Marlins you have are left-handed pitcher uh, Tanner Scott. He's been doing well in bullpen for the Marlins. Has an ERA just over 1.5 with 10 saves. So he could be a closer. He could be your middle guy right before ninth inning. And then you have first baseman Josh Bell. Would be a very good return for the Marlins. Wasn't very expensive at just $8 million for the rest of the year. The team that takes him on could help uh, that team contending uh, if they have an injury. Yankees. And they also have starter Jesus Luzardo, um, left-handed pitcher. Everyone loves lefties. Just went on to 60-day IL with back problem and not eligible to return until after the deadline. So a team taking him could possibly get him for a deal. And then he's still under team control through the 2026 season. Um, and it would be very interesting to see what his turn would look like. But seeing as he just went on to the injured list, it probably wouldn't be something massive. And then Blue Jays, another team that's kind of thinking. Yusei Kikuchi, a left-handed pitcher, starter, 33 years old, has been one of the constants for Blue Jays. Although his ERA is a 4 in 16 starts, he could help someone in stretch. Again, just another plug-and play pitcher that knows what he's doing, been doing it for years, and it helps someone out. Um, Another National League team, Cal Finnegan, right-handed pitcher for the Nationals, has 50 saves in his last 100 appearances with an ERA of just over 3.2, um, including a 2.23 ERA this year. The closing experience is huge for him. 32 years old, um, kind of getting into that last stretch of his MLB career. Could possibly get up there with Kenley Jansen, who I'll talk about later. Moving on to the American League again, the uh, outfield, besides Tommy Pham and Luis Robert Jr., you have Taylor Ward, left fielder, technically outfielder, play all three different positions, but does have a home in left field for the Angels right now. Has hit 51 home runs in the last 309 games. So basically, over the last 3 seasons. And not only do you get some power and an everyday outfielder and an all-star and a left fielder or left-handed hitter who's only 30 years old. He is on control through 2026. This half season, 25, 26, 2.5 years of control is worth a lot. And a guy who's a former all-star, it's for power, it's left-handed, and it stays relatively healthy. So the Angels, if they were to part with him, could possibly get a few good prospects from the team. And then another name that could possibly be moved is Carlos Estevez, who's been lights out in June. He did have some problems in May, but that has now since passed. Angels fans have forgotten, and all is forgiven. Now, the front office has to decide, do we want to keep Estevez or trade him? Because, again, there isn't a ton of bullpen help, or even more so, more direct. There aren't a ton of closers available. Al Finnegan from the Nationals. So Finnegan, right-handed pitcher. Estevez, right-handed pitcher. And then we're going to talk about our last person that we have on the list, Kelly Jansen on the Red Sox. Right-handed pitcher is fifth on all-time saves list, and is having a decent, 36 age season with 15 saves and a 2.3 ERA in 27 appearances. Not throwing a ton of innings, not going to be doing a ton of 2 inning saves. But if you go into the ninth inning and you're up by 1 or 2 runs and you need to just slam the door shut, and like Jansen is there to do it, he's going to end up, in the top five losers of all time. So Boston is in the thick of the wild card race, but may be a few more weeks before we find out if Kenley Jansen is available, as they want to make the playoffs also. So I did forget one name, infielder. We didn't mention a lot of infielder sides, Josh Bell, and you couldn't, I guess, say Diaz and Alonso, but shortstop or second base, Bo Bichette of the Blue Jays, who are basically out of the race this year. Bo Bichette is probably available like Biggio was. Biggio went to LA. Bichette could possibly fit with a team that needs a shortstop long term. Again, he has some control under him. And I'm going to say that wraps up our weekly wrap up trade talk uh, edition for this 2024 season. I don't think there are really a ton of other names right now that you could say easily are available, but following the All Star game and following the draft, especially, I think some more names might pop up. The Angels might have a few names that might pop up as far as availability, like Renhefo, and mainly Renhefo because he's leading the American League in batting average right now. So I think the Angels want to hold on to Luis Renhefo for just 2 more weeks at least, so he can feel at third base, shortstop, second base, and outfield, mainly right field. So you want to keep a guy like him around until you know that you're knocked out of the race 100%. But we'll see if any Angels get traded at all, or if are they. I mean, John, imagine Perry decides to let go of anybody. So we'll see. But this is Randy Nunez, your host, Between the Chalk Lines, weekly wrap up trade deadline talk. We'll get to the deadline a little bit more next. And I will see you in July. We'll talk about the All Star game. I didn't mention any of the selections. So next week, talk about who's in so far, and we'll talk about who could possibly get in the All Star game. Catch you next time.